So for communications networks, there is a principle that was developed by, or first observed by, Bob Metcalfe, who was an executive at 3Com in the 1980s. And he basically said, the value is not in the number of nodes, but in the number of possible connections.
Welcome, Fetty friends, to episode 90 of Fireside Fetty. Episode 90 is obviously the biggest episode. There's no number higher than 90. It is such an occasion. I'm wearing a tie, and I'm obviously all dressed up in my finest. My guest today, very excited to talk to him, Evangelo Prodromo.
Perfect. Fantastic. Very well done.
Excellent.
Well,
Evan is goes by he him. He's a board member of CoSocial.ca, research director of Social Web Foundation, author of ActivityPub, programming for the social web from O'Reilly Media, founder of WikiTravel, StatusNet, Identica, Fuzzy AI, creator of Pump.io, co-creator of GNU Social, former co-chair of the Social Web Working Group at WC3, co-author of Activity Streams 2.0, co-author of ActivityPub, co-author of O-Status, grad student in CS at Georgia Tech. And I'm assuming you're not putting these just for no reason. Greek, Arab, Palestinian, American, Canadian, Montrealis. I think that
Montreal, one would say.
Montreal, of course. Oui, oui.
Or in English, we'd say Montrealer. So yeah, exactly. So King of the Andals, King of the Royanar, first of his name, all the things.
Yeah. So yes, very, very short CV. I'm sure no one has heard of anything that he has done. Evan, thank you so much for being here. And if I start crying on this episode, it is wholly your fault.
Yeah.
But
well, let me tell you, I know when I've been waiting for episode 90. I know it's the big episode. You've been trying to get me on.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not going to be on anything except episode 90, the big one. So here we are.
The biggest.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure mathematicians have not found a way to get past the number 90. So it's obviously the most important.
No one's ever heard of a podcast that's gone beyond 90 episodes.
Right.
It's just mathematically impossible. Yeah,
Doesn't
exactly.
Exist. So I am humbled and grateful that you are here. So thank you very much for taking time out. And as usual, how did you get to where you're at today? And include as much or as little as you want, because already in the intro, that's a lot.
That's a lot. Well, it's wow. I mean, how far back do you want me to start? I can go back to childhood. I can go back to my why don't I start with my credentials from my family. My father is a longtime participant in the personal computer electronics revolution. His name is Prodromou. Probably best known for his work at Texas Instruments, where he led the development of the Speak and Spell. If you're familiar with that,
of course.
One. He was the head of Mattel Electronics when they did Intellivision, which was the big Atari competitor. He built one of the first handheld computers, the pocket computer. So my growing up, I was one of four boys. And we were a built-in test market for electronic devices. So, my dad also was product manager for the TI-99/4, the personal computer. So we started programming and working with computers, when I was about 10, 11 years old. So, as the personal computers are just coming up, I was a participant pretty early, and as a undergraduate at UC Berkeley, my work, I was a physics major. I did physics and English as a double major, and at the time, the best way to get a position with a research group was being able to program the computers that ran the various instruments, right?
Yeah.
Something that older graduate students or the professors weren't able to do. I could find my way in and say, "Oh, you're having a problem with that telescope? Why don't you let me, write a little Fortran and let's see if we can make it work."
Yeah.
Um, so I worked for
Wow.
a number of research groups. I did some astrophysics, and then when I left college, I worked for a couple of different companies, and then I worked for Microsoft for about the longest time doing development of software there. Yeah. So like that's kind of my start. I'm going to keep going. Let's just keep
Yeah.
this train running.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Uh, I left Microsoft in the late 1990s because I
Okay.
got really interested in a technology that they weren't as interested in, which
Yeah.
was the web.
Mm-hmm.
I had been doing some web programming when I was at Microsoft, and they were doing like other client server development. So I was like, I
Mm.
really need to do this. And I had a lot of great like web development projects when I was in. During that time, I worked for SegaSoft doing an online gaming system called Heat.net. Um, and then worked for RSA doing a security standard called SAML, SAML.
I know Samuel
Um,
well. Yeah.
oh yeah, wow,
Yeah.
great. Yeah, so I was on the Oasis working group for SAML.
Oh my
So
gosh.
um, in 2001, um, about I my company was bought. The company I worked for was bought. I got a good buyout package, and I decided I wanted to start working on my own. So I left San Francisco, where I lived, toured all around the United States and Canada, Mexico, looking for a next city to live in. And I came here
Yeah.
to Montreal, spent about 6 months in Montreal, and decided this is where I wanted to spend the rest of my life. So I've been in Montreal since then. Um, in 2003, I started my first big project on my own. With my wife actually,
Mm-hmm.
called Wiki Travel, which is like Wikipedia meets Lonely Planet. It's an open content, open source travel guide that was acquired in 2006. And then in 2011, it was forked from the acquirer and became one of the Wikimedia Foundation projects, now called WikiVoyage. After the acquisition, I started another company called Identica. And at the time, I don't know how many, like, it's hard to imagine this now, but at the time in the mid 2000s, we had this kind of culture of open source supremacy, right?
Yeah.
Like anything you could do with open source. We were seeing like server operating systems get completely obliterated by Linux, right? Like there
Yeah.
was just nothing, right? It's big, expensive machines that used to cost hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, right, are down to commodity prices because Linux is going in there and destroying all that value.
Mm-hmm.
Or document management systems like Documentum, right, are just getting challenged by open source versions like Drupal and just no contest.
Mm-hmm.
So I came into this area where we had um, a burgeoning development of social networks, right, that had started with 6 Degrees and Friendster, followed up by real, explosion of different systems like High Five and Bebo and
Remember high five. Yeah.
Facebook and upcoming
MySpace. Yeah.
MySpace. There you
Yeah.
go. And we had this one called Twitter that was doing really well. And I was like, hey, this business piece of cake. I'm going to come in here, make an open source alternative. People are going to love it. It's just going to eat the lunch of Twitter.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't quite happen that way, but it was the work that I started there. So that's how I got involved. I realized that was a long prologue, but that's how I got involved in the world of distributed social networks. Actually, that's not entirely true. There's one more step, which
Mm-hmm.
is that we had this open source network
Mm-hmm.
that you could install. And there had been open source networks before. Probably, I think you may know Ben Verdmuller. he had created one called ELG, ELGG, that was an open source social network that you could install and use for your own community. Identica was similar. We called the software Laconica or later StatusNet. It's now GNU Social, but it's the same code base. It also was an open source system, but what people really quickly said was, hey, we can take this software, we can install it on our own servers. It was like LAMP stack, it was, MySQL, PHP. It was like very easy to install somewhere. The problem is we get cut off from the conversation, and they're like, we need a way to reconnect. I was like, okay, give me a moment, and developed a protocol. The first version was called Open Microblogging 0.1. It was very simple, but it let us connect different installations of this software. We did okay with that, but at the time, there was a cluster of other open technology folks kind of working in different organizations. So like early Facebook, Google, Twitter, 6apart, WordPress, all of them, kind of collaborating across organizational lines. It's really hard to imagine this at this time. So some of the people that we know now on the Fediverse, like Blaine Cook, they were developing OAuth, OpenID, etc. And so this early version, Open Microblogging, my team and I, which was me, Brooke Vibber, who is up until recently at Wikimedia Foundation, James Walker, who was core developer of Drupal, and Zach Copley. We took this new suite of systems, and we kind of assembled them into something we called OStatus. And that was in like 2010. And it was considerably richer than the open microblogging thing that we had, which was just like text. So we were able to take this, a data structure called activity streams, which had been developed, by Facebook, Google, etc. This group.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, absolutely. Activity streams originally came out of this like strange star chamber of different folks from different organizations. Facebook was one of the first companies to have an activity streams feed for your account. Yeah, it's really funny that there. But so we used activity streams. We used a push mechanism called PubSub Hubbub, which had come out of Google. Another mechanism for pushing things upstream, which was called Salmon, because salmons swim upstream. And then finally, Webfinger, which is the identity system that we currently use, right? And that formed the OStatus stack. And I think that it's probably fair to say that like OStatus stack between like 2010 and maybe late 2010s was how we did distributed social networking, on the Fediverse. There are still systems that primarily depend on OStatus, like GNU Social still primarily depends on OStatus. So I had a company. I think I mentioned this. I had started a company. Companies are supposed to make money. Not everybody knows this, but companies are supposed to make money. I was the founder. We had kind of built up. We had been pretty lucky with the adoption of the software. So we had companies like Motorola, Target, Deutsche Bank, who were all using our technology, which was cool, and they were paying us, but it wasn't enough to really kind of get liftoff as a venture funded startup. And in particular, towards the beginning of the 2010s, I realize I have not let you get a word in.
No, this is great. No, please, I'll have a billion questions.
At some point.
Yeah. No, you're good.
When you ask someone with as long a career as I have, tell me how you got here, it's like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to tell you the whole story. Unfortunately, you sat next to me at the bar, you got to listen to the story.
I love it.
So towards this period, say 2010 to 2012,
Mm-hmm.
all those social network companies that we were talking about before, right? Just like this real huge diversity of companies, a uh, federation structure really makes sense in that kind of ecosystem, right?
Yep.
Except that ecosystem was collapsing, um, and really down to like a handful of companies, um, Facebook, Twitter,
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn, and then just a few more dabbling around the edges, right? Like they were
Mm-hmm.
really disappearing. And my investors were like, "Hey, we don't think this federated social networking thing is going to take off. We're pulling the plug." So I had just enough money left, and a big grant from the Canadian government, and so I said, I'm gonna do a swan song. I'm gonna try and do this the right way and do this kind of last step with federated social networking, and that project was Pump.io. Pump.io came out in 2012, and it used a new federation protocol that is just called like the Pump.io protocol, and it is it was it worked really nicely. I, Identica still runs on it, so Identica is still around. It stopped at the Pump.io level, but I thought I was done, and then the W3C reached out and they said we want to do a standard. I was like, okay, I can help you do that. So I was working with other companies. Like social networks were no longer my like daytime job, but I took over as chair of the social web working group at
Mm-hmm.
W3C and guided our group barely through standardization of ActivityPub and activity streams. Right, kind of a difficult process, but we made it. I'll just say there. Pump.io's API, Pump.io's protocol became the basis of what we now call ActivityPub.
Okay.
And yeah, so that is the Aaron Shepard, who had been a developer for Pump.io, rewrote the protocol definition and said, okay, we're going to do this as a standard. And that's what became ActivityPub. So around 2018, 2019, once we were shipping those projects, I was like, great, now I can really quit. We've got like standards, we've got all these interested people. I went and worked for Wikipedia for several years, where I was where I led APIs and data feeds, which was really exciting, great work. And then Elon Musk bought Twitter, and I was like, oh, I guess I better get back on this social web thing. so starting in January of 2023, I got back involved, and now I work as the editor of activity streams and ActivityPub specifications, and also lead some of the extension work applying ActivityPub to other areas. All right, I'm done.
Wow. That's okay. So first off, I didn't know that you're like tech royalty then, right? Because this is you. It's interesting because I had talked to Cory Doctorow years ago, and he said that he was actually sounds like around the same time investigating doing like an open social network as well, and his investors told him that it had dried up as well and that they couldn't do any more with it because they're getting out because of all the liability and things like that. um to know that these companies used to work together is humorous, but also that's originally what they set out to do, right? They literally set out to make a more open and free social media experience, and it went by the wayside pretty quickly when money got involved. It seems like. Um,
I really think that that's the case, right? Like there was a time when like Facebook, for example,
mhm,
was a very open platform that
mhm,
anyone could use their APIs and build widgets. You could build like UI that works in their interfaces. And there were two things that really changed that. The first was that they pivoted away from a web UI, right? So they started off in like 2006, 2007, 2008
yeah,
with a web based UI that's for the desktop
mhm,
and putting like extra widgets or little things that you could do around the page kind of made a lot of sense, right? That's a lot harder to do as you move to mobile, right? As they moved into native mobile applications, it's just hard to like build pluggable, extensible interfaces for an iPhone or an Android.
yeah.
It's probably possible, but I don't think they
Well,
prioritized it, right?
especially
So that was
especially when those things are just coming out, they're these new emerging technologies that the software hadn't caught up yet, right? Like that's it was a whole different time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the other thing that, really threw a lot of these networks off was a lot of them were funded by venture capital, right? Which where the most
Yeah.
important thing was like get more users, get more market share, get bigger.
Mhm.
And towards the beginning of the 20 teens, those investors were saying, okay, now you need to start making money. You've got these big near monopolies. Now it's time to start making money.
Yep.
And they landed on advertising as the business model. And with advertising as the business model, you need a lot more control.
Mhm.
So things like third party clients, right, that could take the feed and reorder it and filter it.
Yep.
That's a real problem if you are depending on ads showing up in the right place in the feed for your bread and butter. So a lot of the like openness of these platforms shut down over and over until they're barely surviving now, right?
Mhm.
And if you look at things like the Facebook API, very thin layer, not a lot you can get. LinkedIn API is almost gone. I think there are a couple of things you could do.
Mhm.
Twitter API behind a crazy big paywall, right?
Yep.
And so this idea of openness through APIs really kind of collapsed in that period. But at the same time, we have put a lot of effort into opening up through federation instead.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because I always, I had this idea that something like ActivityPub was in response to those walled gardens and shitification, but it sounds like you had worked on it before that as a passion project of just we want this to be more open.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely the case. And I will say to you, like, I talk about those folks who were at like a Google or Facebook and they were
Hmm.
cheering us on, right? They were like, oh, so great, you're doing activity streams. Keep going. We've got a feed,
Wow.
use our feed, right? I think the high watermark for like big tech well, maybe let me put an asterisk next to that. Big watermark for this period
Yeah.
was the launch of Google Buzz. Google Buzz was a project at Google. I don't know if
Okay.
you're familiar with it. It was one
No.
of their many social networks. Basically, it supported O status almost entirely. They had a couple things missing, but basically, like WebFinger, activity streams, PubSub Hubbub. They didn't support Salmon, so you couldn't comment or stuff, but it was a really impressive process where you could be on Identica or your own StatusNet GNU social system, and you're talking to people on this big Google network. So that's the good part. That's really the high watermark. Google Buzz hit some really rocky water really fast. So one of the ways that they decided they were going to do their growth um, hacking was they started your social network using your Gmail
Okay. Yep.
contact list,
Hmm.
right? So it was like, hey, Evan's got Anthony in his Gmail contact list. We're going to connect these two.
Right.
Well, I don't know about you, but I have a lot of people on my contact list that I want nothing to do with anymore, right? And so did a lot of these users, and they were like, oh, and so Google got sued, like hundreds of millions of dollars. It was a really big deal over this thing,
Okay.
and I think that like soured Google unfairly, because it had nothing to do with the open. It had nothing to do with the Federation, right? We
Yeah.
didn't make them use the email. But like, I think they were like, never again, never again are we going into open social stuff. So they shut down Buzz,
Interesting.
and that was it. So that was our high watermark before Threads. There, I'll throw that one in.
Well, and I mean, everyone, well, not everyone, a lot of us nerdy people were very excited about, what was it? Google Plus, right? Because we had
Yeah.
we had an alternative. And at that time, Google at least had not killed off absolutely everything. They killed off some projects, but they were known to still be somewhat more open friendly. They had supported XMPP. They were all in on Google Reader with RSS. And then it seems like once Google Plus didn't work out, a lot of us started seeing like, if they don't get massive return on investment, they're just going to start abandoning it, right? Like they're not here to serve you. They're here to keep the numbers flowing in. Um, and it's interesting because I remember, so I think I came to Mastodon about 2017, 2018. And that's when I started looking into things like GNU Social, and Diaspora was another one.
Absolutely. Yeah, wonderful project, right? And at the time that Diaspora launched, oh, let me kind of give you my
Yeah.
little thing here. Another item. So Diaspora launched in what, 2010 or something. They raised like $200,000, which at the time it was like the biggest Kickstarter that had ever existed, right? People were like, "This is incredible! They raised $200,000." Like, they're going to be able to live for 2 years. Those four guys are going to be able to live for 2 years on that, right? Like, it was just so amazing that they were going to be able to use that as real income. Um, and they had kind of jumped into this area of federated social networking without like knowing anything about the ecosystem. And so kind of as a welcome party, kind of as a like, hey, you need to pay attention to this, um, the O status development community, as well as a number of other communities, got together, and we started having an event called the Federated Social Web Summit, where it was only
Oh,
developers, and it was only folks who were working on Federated Social Web, and we got everyone together to like, hey, present your stuff, talk about what you're doing, get encouragement, learn from each other. What's a problem? And so Diaspora was a big part of that effort. Like they were really great about being part of it. Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
no,
Diaspora
no.
is another great network, though.
Well, and it was interesting because at that time there was conversations of, which way is Mastodon going to go? Mastodon
Yeah.
should go Diaspora. Mastodon, because Mastodon was like a very clean interface at the time. It reminded people of Twitter. And those of us that were really nerdy, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to want something that everyone knows. And I've talked to other people and I said, you've kind of made it when people are having this conversation, especially those that are like, I don't like that one for these reasons. It's like, but you spent a lot of time and energy on it to understand those reasons. And when they went ActivityPub, everyone's talking about O status and diaspora and all these things. And it was kind of a pivotal moment. And I don't think Mastodon was the perfect choice, but it was the choice we had at the time. It was at the right place at the right time. It looked the right way. And, it is as far as I know, the leading ActivityPub client at this time. But you had left, right? So was someone picking up ActivityPub, working on it, or did it kind of just coast?
Well, the main author and editor. We had two authors and editors, Christine Lemmer Weber
Yes.
and Jessica Talon, who had really put in the lion's share of effort, right? So I like to remind people that like I am the fifth listed author on ActivityPub, right?
Yeah.
So we have a number of people who are listed before me, and Christine and Jessica did an amazing job, and they were really leading the effort there. I think that there's another aspect on where we kind of lost leadership in that area, and that was COVID-19. It's hard to
Mm-hmm.
remember that things got really tough, but things like having regular meetings, doing regular work, just kind of fell by the wayside, and that's the way things happen. Also,
Yeah.
I think also, and let me lastly say here that at the time that ActivityPub was standardized, there was kind of this idea in standards organizations, including the W3C, that was like, hey, finish your specification and you're done, right? Like there might be some
Oh.
like tracking errata or something like that, but basically it was like, you're done, go home. Like you don't have to go home, just don't stay here, right? Like there was
Yeah.
this kind of that it was kind of a low effort work after the first specifications were done. And I think one thing that W3C has learned, and we definitely as a social web community have learned, is like, hey, specification landing is like, that's day one. That's not the end. That's the beginning
That's
of
the
the journey,
beginning.
right?
Yeah. And I mean,
Yeah.
HTML is an excellent example of that, right? Like it's
Yeah.
we talk about web 2, web 3 as blockchain or whatever, and it's not stop.
Yeah.
HTML5 exists for a reason. But it's interesting you mentioned Christine, because I didn't know this until a couple of years ago, but one of the projects that I had found early on that got me massively excited for where the web could go again was Media Goblin. Have you?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so for folks that don't know Media Goblin, and I didn't know Christine was working on this, I had found this, I don't know, what was it? Early 20 teens or something like that. It was going to be a
That's right.
decentralized video platform. And I'm like, so excited, and I'm waiting and I'm waiting and I'm waiting, and nothing came out because Christine shifted focus, in my opinion, to something, more worldwide. Um and
And that's partly my fault. I have to say, like Christine was like, "Hey, we need some help, like getting the federation going. We want to make it compatible with O status." And I'm like, "Why don't you come to some of these W3C meetings? See if you want to get involved, and then that will help you out." And she ended up spending years editing ActivityPub instead. So I probably gave her bad advice.
no, but she and yourself, and that's what I always try to remember is it is not, and no offense to you, it is not an Evan project, right?
No.
It is taken so many. I've joined a couple of the meetings, and it is never you just saying this is how it goes.
Right.
And
It can't be.
it
Right?
can't be,
Yeah.
right? And that's what I love about this is it all happens in the open. You can come in these meetings. I had no idea what was going on, but like I jumped in, I was like, well, from an end user perspective, here's what I see. And I'm pretty sure you guys just looked at me like, that's not at all what we're talking about, but okay, buddy. But that's why I'm so excited about this kind of stuff. And I can't say how much I appreciate you folks putting work into these, because this is what the web was built on, is these kind of open standards, open conversations. God, there's so much I want to go over, and there's so little time.
We got all the time in the world. I'll come back for episode 90 part 2.
Oh, yeah. Someone was saying after we're done with your CV, that'll be the end of the episode. We'll have to have more videos. But like, could you have ever imagined? And I know that the world does not know this exists yet. It's in my opinion that this is inevitable at this point. But could you have ever imagined it even got to this point?
I think that So let me talk about the my kind of journey of belief. I'll say it that way.
Yeah.
Which is, I mentioned that period in the 2000s where we had this kind of open source supremacism.
Mm-hmm.
Once you introduce open source into some market, blammo, it's going to take over, and everything will be open source, right?
Yep.
And learning that that is not the case with social networks was really interesting, right? So for communications networks, there is a principle that was developed by, or first observed by, Bob Metcalf, who was a executive at 3Com in the 1980s. And he basically said, the value is not in the number of nodes, but in the number of possible connections.
Okay.
So not just the number of people on the social network, but how they can join together.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's for like network cards or telephones or telegrams or communications, right? Communications is about the connections, and the number of connections goes up with the square of the number of participants, right? So you might think that if you go from a network that has 10 people to one that has 20 people in it, you're going from like, you've got like 10 units of value. That's more, right? That it doubles, but it's not the case. It's you're going from like 100 units of value to 400 units of value. It's much, much bigger, which means that, and I know that that's a really tough principle to get across, but the idea is like really big networks are really sticky. They seem like they should only be somewhat more sticky, but they are much more sticky.
Yeah.
So trying to compete with a Twitter that was like, heading towards like 100 million users when Identica had like 10 million users, I was like, oh, how hard is this? They're only 90 million ahead of us. We're going to catch up. But the thing is like by the time that they had 100 million users, they were at escape velocity, right?
Yeah.
And they really, like, the big networks, like I said, just collapsed that that world. So I think that towards the early 2010s, I was like, oh, we're not going to be able to compete at all. And I was like, this is a good idea. It's good that we have it. It's good that we developed the technology, but like, here's my Pump.io, here's ActivityPub, you guys go tinker around, like, I'll always be interested in playing with this technology, but it's going to be a toy. It's not going to be real, right?
Yeah.
Like we can't compete in this world.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the developments in the 2020s have definitely changed my mind on that, right? And there are a couple of important ones, and I can kind of tell you what I think they are. I know that there are more, right? I no longer have this like open source inevitabilism, like open source is going to wipe out everything because it's open source. I don't think that's the case with social networks. However, I think that there are other pressures.
Okay.
First one is more active antitrust enforcement, right? And so US, EU, other jurisdictions where they're saying like, hey, you can no longer be a monopoly in a market, right? We don't care. Back in the early 2000s, Google and Microsoft and whoever, you could kind of like snowball us into saying that we didn't understand technology and it has to work this way and whatever. We're no longer putting up, right? You're no longer allowed to have a monopoly, and we got to start working with it, right? So that's probably the first thing. Is more antitrust means that things like federation of messaging systems or social networking systems starts to be like maybe a remedy in some of these antitrust events. And even the threat of antitrust makes organizations that are maybe dominant in the industry say like, hey, we better start supporting these protocols in order to like avoid a antitrust ruling, right? So if they could say like, hey, we're not a monopoly, we federate with everyone else, that really helps out with that adoption. So that's first thing. Second thing is, the shakeup that came with the acquisition of Twitter, right?
Yeah.
So this idea of like, hey, this game is open again. And I think also a number of players that were like, we don't need to win. We just need to make sure that Twitter loses, right?
Yeah. Yep.
so, so it was like, hey, if it's like Meta Threads and Mozilla Social and some other projects and
Mm-hmm.
Cloudflare working together, right? As long as we have more folks than Twitter, then we're winning, right? We don't have to be, none of us have to be the biggest network. We just need to be together bigger than that other thing. So that was kind of the second thing, was like
Yeah.
blood in the water with Twitter really helped, some interest. I think also, and kind of like this is my thing, I think about this a lot. So you may not,
Oh, I think
you may
about
not
this
understand.
stuff all the time too, just in
Yeah.
a different light than you do. Yeah, I don't have the
Oh
depth.
yeah. But I think the third big thing that's a real big movement towards federation today in 2026 was the 2024 U.S. Presidential election, right? Where we saw not only the election of a mercantilist U.S. government president, right, one that was really joining the interests of industry and the government, right? Like, not saying there was any difference between them, right? Like trade policy was uh, the foreign policy of the Trump administration,
Right.
but falling in line by big tech behind the Trump administration.
Yep.
And for governments, so I live in Canada, Europe, Brazil, a number of other places, they're saying like, we can no longer afford to be dependent on American social networks. We need to have a domestic social network industry that is, serving our citizens' needs,
Yeah.
serving our cultural needs, that is not spying on
It's
us, or like a lot of things where it's like, hey, this is no longer something that's theoretical. This is something that we need to have.
yeah. No, and this is again. There's a million things here. I want to. I agree with you on everything. I think mercantilist is a very nice way to accurately say, but it's interesting because we had used our power in the '90s to push our beliefs into DMCA and like protect our IP and stuff like that. And all the countries were like, well, yeah, you're America. You're our friend. Of course, we'll do this with you because you're going to buy our goods. And we just lit that on fire. And now all of a sudden, these basic lines of communication are no different than, say, the Industrial Revolution, where everyone
Yeah.
wants to be able to build their own stuff and they have a right to, and they don't want to be locked out. Um, I am still one of those people that believes that open source is inevitable, but I think you made a really good point of I think you were early in that everyone still trusted all of these other platforms. Well,
Yeah.
why do I need this? Because I have that, right? And I think you made an excellent point of how expensive computing was 80s, 90s, even early 2000s when I got my job at my first company in 2011. They said they were switching. It was a Fortune 500. They're switching everything over to Linux. And I said, why? And they said, because one HPUX box costs $100,000. We could buy 10 Red Hat boxes that are faster and do more than that. But I see it as innovation. Like the big guys, they shut down things that don't make billions of dollars, and they're, in my opinion, stagnating.
Yeah.
Not that my opinion means anything, but that's how I feel.
Well, I think also like so one of the things open source does, right, is that it shifts the locus of control from a big single monolithic player in the network to a lot of different ones,
Yep.
right? And so you can have a big variety of different ownership structures, business models,
Mm-hmm.
etc. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, a LinkedIn, right? Sorry, I'm gonna get. Always have to be careful because like, well, I would love to get LinkedIn to federate, right? It would be wonderful. It'd be great for us, be great for them.
Yeah.
But for LinkedIn, right? a company might say like, hey, we want to run our own social network for our employees rather than using this other platform, right?
Yeah.
And so having federation makes it possible for them to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So running for your club, running for your city, running
Yeah.
in like on your Raspberry in your basement, right? Like all the different reasons that people want to do it. Um, Depending on platforms, is probably always going to be the case, right? There'll be
Mm-hmm.
cloud systems, there'll be big platforms. I think that we have to like understand that what makes open source viable is that it is participating in a wider network.
Yeah. All right. I have two final questions that I have to ask.
Awesome.
Just because even
We're
though I have a
still on
million
question
others. Oh, only one question?
one so far.
What is well again, it's more of a like a back and forth fireside chat, but
Exactly.
what is something that you think that people don't understand about ActivityPub or don't know is possible without ActivityPub that you would like to get out there?
Wow, that is a really good question. And there is something that's really important to me in the um, design of ActivityPub that's not represented well in the current usage of ActivityPub,
Okay.
which is that the design of ActivityPub in part comes from a system called Open Social, which was a multi-network open API for social networks, right?
Okay.
So like if you remember Orkut, High Five, I
Yeah,
mentioned
that
that
one I
one.
remember.
I think VK, right? So a lot of like social networks in a way to challenge Facebook, which had this big developer platform,
Mm-hmm.
built their own API platform that was like an extension system for social networks. So you could make widgets that you would drop into your profile and zombie bites and super pokes and all those fun things. It was that period of like 2008 to 2012 was really this very productive, interesting time for social applications that ran in a layer on top of the distribution layer, right? So, like Facebook provided the social graph, the distribution, the some hosting, right, for these applications, and the applications were like building games, building different kinds of exciting apps
Yes.
that worked on top of
Yeah.
Facebook, right? And so that was a like really that format was a really important inspiration for what ActivityPub is. And what has happened since that time with ActivityPub is that we've gone very siloed and vertically integrated with applications, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we have PeerTube, which is your video sharing system, right? And
Yep.
we have Mastodon, which is your microblogging system, and PixelFed, which is your photo sharing system, right? And ActivityPub was kind of designed so that you could have a common base network, right? Like that would handle some of the basic services like distribution, your social graph, who you're connected to, profile, data storage, things like that. And then you could build these applications on top of them. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason that that's important is that the plumbing part that I just described is really hard to scale. It's hard to build, right? There are smart people who've done really good work with ActivityPub. So Mastodon is a really great example. You know, it goes up to millions of users, right? But then it starts rattling as you get
Yeah.
up above that level. And I think that there is for a lot of developers, right, like having to deal with scaling the distribution and scaling that work, it's it's not easy to do, right?
Yes.
And they're like, hey, I just want to make a movie review application, or I want to make a like
Yeah.
geographical checking application or whatever. I don't want to have to deal with all the plumbing.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a place that AT Proto has really shown some strength, right? Like they have been, if you look at some of the AT Proto development work, AT Proto really has this model where you can build these applications and then use their plumbing in order to distribute things. Now, I'm not going to start it on AT Proto at like 10 minutes before because I've got lots of opinions on it. But like, the important thing is like definitely that rejuvenation of that idea of like client applications that you build on top of a network has rejuvenated that part of ActivityPub.
Well, and that's honestly, I see the next evolution of this coming from things like Fedify and Emissary and Bonfire, right? Where we handle everything low level and you build whatever you want on top of it. And I'm very
Yeah.
excited about those.
Yeah, I think it's a great mechanism. I don't and I want to make sure I don't say this. I am amazed by PeerTube.
Oh,
I'm
it's
amazed
incredible.
on
Yep.
Bookworm. We have so many interesting applications, but there are dozens, right? We
Mm-hmm.
have like dozens of different kinds of. We have a lot of like Mastodon clones.
Mm-hmm.
We have like dozens maybe of other kinds of applications, photo sharing, book reviews,
Right.
event sharing, etc. And it drops off pretty fast. And I
Yeah.
think that there is room for like hundreds, thousands of different kinds of applications where you could go with your same account, right? I'm always Evan at CoSocial. I go with my same account, I log in, I use it, and it's a social experience and it's a new kind that I've never used before. And I think that's a really powerful model for us to follow.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. One final question before we jump into the most important part, which is the quiz. So those that see your picture anywhere see something very specific that is lacking from today's Evan.
I know.
What happened to the amazing mustache?
Thank you so much for asking. So, starting in the pandemic, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was playing a video game called Red Dead Redemption 2,
Oh
which
yeah.
is a cowboy game. One of the things you could do is grow a mustache, right? And my character, I grew a mustache that was like this big,
Yeah.
and my daughter was like, "You are really." She was watching me play, and she's like, "You are playing this because you want a mustache that big." I was like, "Oh wow, that's a good point." At the time, it was I think you mentioned earlier I'm Greek Palestinian, so
Mm-hmm.
from this tradition of the Middle East where big mustaches were kind of a big thing, and my daughter was like, "Hey, we're coming up on the 200-year anniversary of Greek independence, which was in 2025." And or 2021 was the announcement, and you should grow a mustache, right? And I was like, great time to do it. So I grew this big mustache, and I've had a mustache for like the last 5 years. Big thing, right? And uh, one of the things that happens if you have a big mustache is like it starts preceding you into a room, right? It's what people remember about talking to you rather than anything you
Yeah.
said. I really felt like instead of a man wearing a mustache, I was a man carrying a mustache around and
Yeah.
following its bidding as it went about. So this year, on New Year's Eve, I was like, all right, I'm going to do a year without a mustache. I want to find out who I am without a mustache. So that's what I'm doing.
All right.
2026 is my year without a mustache. I'll almost definitely go back to it. I miss it as much as everyone else. But it's been interesting getting to know my face again without the big mustache.
Squirrel in chat said the mustache federated elsewhere. So I love that. And so are you going to be at FediCon? Because I might have a surprise for you at FediCon.
I will be at FediCon.
Okay.
Yes, I'm excited to go.
Great. Yeah, I'm very excited to go as well. All right. Well, now for the real reason I asked Evan here is to give him the opportunity to win a prize of a lifetime. Our prize today is world peace.
Woo!
Are you ready for the quiz, Evan?
This is a lot of pressure. Yeah. Okay, I'm in.
All right. Favorite movie and why is it Spaceballs? Take this off. I can't do this anymore. It doesn't have to be Spaceballs. It is my favorite, but
Really?
oh, I love Spaceballs.
Spaceballs is such a weird movie, though.
Oh, that's why I love it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Um, I I like. I think my favorite movie is Memento, the one that goes backwards in time, where he has the short-term memory. It's
Mm-hmm.
just such an amazing narrative structure. Uh, a, a, a discussion of like how we know things and how we remember things and how we kind of use our knowledge to live in the world and live with other people. So I think it's one of my. I'm going to take it as my favorite movie.
Yeah, that's a good one. Good call. Okay. Next question.
Was that it? did I get it right?
Well, there's more. I mean, yes
Keep
and
going.
no. Yes and no. Next question is Montreal, San Francisco, Cincinnati, Amsterdam, or Lisbon?
Boy, like I mentioned Montreal. I love it here. It's a wonderful city. Anyone who's been knows that it gets very cold in the winter. We have sub zero temperatures, deep snow. That's really wonderful. But in the summer, people just come out of their shells and they have these amazing summers, music. We have festivals, Just for Last Festival, Jazz Fest. It's a very exciting place to live. Um, I think of those five, like as I get older, my brothers and parents still live in the San Francisco Bay Area. I think if I had to had I visit like several times a year. If I had to decide, no, I'm gonna go with Lisbon. It's a great city too. What's it up?
Nice curveball. You're setting us up. All right.
I nearly got sentimental, and I was like, nope, I'm doing Lisbon. I like it. Lisbon's also amazing city, very affordable, great food, really beautiful, like really creative culture, a lot of cool stuff going on there.
All right. Love it. Next question. And this, I know that's going to be such a difficult question. It's going to take a very long time, but people or profits?
Boy, that's a tough one, but I'm gonna go for people. Yeah, people are what matters, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Why people?
yeah. Why people? I think that well, you can only spend your profits by giving them to people to make things for you. So, like, right there, if there's no people, it's just like that Twilight Zone where he's got like all the books but no glasses, right? It's like, oh, I got all the profits, but there's no people to spend it on.
Yeah.
I think I think when it comes down to like what technology is for and why we build like communications technology, it's to make connections, right? It's to like it's to get out of the loneliness of being a human being in a confusing and strange world and find out that other people have the same experience that we do and learn from them and they learn from us and communications, speaking, writing, up until social networks. It's all about making that connection, and that's what we're here to do.
Yeah, profits don't make anything. It's people that make things.
That's right.
All right. Next question. What does an alternate universe Evan do?
Woo! Oh, that's an interesting one. Yeah. Alternate universe Evan. I think that like alternate universe Evan would be doing some shamanism. I'd be like I really think that say like 10,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago, I'd be like with a group of people, maybe in a small area. We're a little bit nomadic, but we stay in the same area. And, I take the responsibility for remembering things, keeping our group together, remembering our stories, maybe keeping us connected to the nature that we live in.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's what I'd love to.
That's
That's where I'd love to be. Yeah.
that's
So that shamanic responsibility, keep us connected to our past and our future too.
yeah, that's amazing. So as everyone knows, I actually have an alternate universe phone. It changes its look from week to week. This week it is two robots on a paper that say, "What do you call a robot working in a soda factory?" A robotler. Uh, and I reached out to an alternate universe. In fact, I reached out to many alternate universes, and every single Evan said they did the same thing, which was change the world,
No.
which I love.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love it. Uh, Next question: red, black, white, or green?
Red, black, white, or green. I'm going to assume that these colors do not come with any weighted symbolism.
You
Green's
sure?
always been. Oh, maybe they are. Maybe they do. Maybe they do. Uh oh.
Think of a flag.
Oh yeah, it's the Palestinian flag.
It
Yeah,
is,
exactly.
yeah.
Well, the green is the one that's most important to me. So like
Okay.
green to leaves, green to nature. That's my favorite thing.
Yeah, I always love that one. A lot of people pick green just because it's worldly, right? It's nature.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
beautiful.
Okay,
Uh,
good. I'm glad I caught it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, I think like for Native North Americans, right, especially like Plains people, right, like red, black, white, and yellow are directional colors, right? So it's
Oh,
interesting that they overlap so much. All right, back
yeah.
to you.
And last question, as usual, will be sent to Evan telepathically. It's not as cool as ActivityPub, but we're both telepathic, obviously. So I'll go ahead and send you the question. Take your time, think about it, and then go ahead with your answer whenever you're ready. Are your telepathic lines open?
Yes,
Okay, here it comes. And there's your telepathic question. Again, take your time.
I would say yes. Of course, we're friends. Why do you even have to?
Oh, thank you. I mean, that's exactly what I was expecting. We're telepathic. I know it. Well, congratulations. You got every answer either correct or incorrect. Good job.
Great. Oh,
Unfo- Unfortunately, when we went to give Evan a piece of the world, we realized that Evan has given us so much more than just a piece of the world. He's helped give us all a better world, a world where everyone has an opportunity for privacy, free from censorship, free from tyrants that want to force their values on everyone else. A place where we can come together, have real conversations, and we get to decide our future together, even in private. Most importantly to me, you have seriously given me hope and my family a true, bright, and free future. And I'll never stop fighting for this gift that you helped give us and give my children a better future for it. And I thank you so much for all of your hard work.
well, thank you so much. That was very, very sweet. I gotta say, it's a group effort. We build this
Yeah.
network together. Like
Yes.
this is our network that we're making our together. Right.
Yeah.
Every piece of it counts. So thank you so
Yes.
much.
Thank you.
Uh,
What is the best way folks can help you?
wow. There's a few, right? One thing is to follow the work that I do at Social Web Foundation. So Social Web Foundation is a nonprofit. Our work is to make a bigger, better Fediverse. We have a Fediverse enabled blog at socialwebfoundation.org. So keep an eye on the projects we do, help us and support us. If you are interested in further development of the ActivityPub standard, if you're a developer interested in those ways, please join the social web community group at the W3C. If you search for social CG or social web community group, you're going to find us. It is the place that we are pushing to make ActivityPub bigger and better. And we need you. We need everyone who's technical to be involved. Most of all, biggest thing you can do, invite people that matter to you to join you on the Fediverse, right?
All right.
What keeps us here, what makes it a great network, is the real human connections we make or the real human connections we bring here. So if you haven't brought a friend or a family member, bring your mom, bring your sister. Like let's make it a place where our connections matter.
Wonderful. That was great. Thank you so much. And yeah, thank you everyone that's out there on the Fediverse. It doesn't work without you. The protocol does nothing without the people. Your communities are matter. Use it how you want. It's yours. It's free. They've given it out to everyone. So build what you can, share what you want, and enjoy. And thank you all. And we'll catch you on the next episode of Fireside Fedi. Have a great one all. Bye.
All right.